All right, everyone, we just have one massive topic to break down and discuss today, and it has to do with Nintendo and their summertime direct presentation schedule, as we've seen a very interesting year from them so far, being initially with a Xenoblade Chronicles 3 direct, then a mini partner showcase, and now a final Splatoon 3 focus direct that will be coming later this week. And we have to break down all the details that are announced and talk about whether or not this tells us anything in terms of Nintendo and their future plans for whether it be game-specific directs or that big return to a general direct going forward. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now guys, as I mentioned, we are unpacking one massive topic today, and it has to do with Nintendo and their 2022 direct presentation schedule, as I think many of us were expecting this year to be a somewhat predictable and back to regular schedule Nintendo direct style presentation year, as typically we see them hold one at the beginning of the year, either in February or March most frequently. Then we get that middle, typically huge summertime blowout direct that is normally aligned with E3 in the June time window, and you can argue that maybe that would have taken place if E3 was not canceled this year, and it may have a lot to do with the delay of Breath of the Wild 2, which we will be diving into also in the back half of this video, and whether or not a game like that could be seeing some kind of game specific direct. And then we have that final end of the year direct towards the September, sometimes October window, but almost always September if you look at history. And at this point in time, while it seems like a safe expectation to say that Nintendo will be putting on a mainline general direct in September, it is also not confirmed because they are definitely taking a different approach this year. As mentioned, up to this point over the summer, instead of a mainline typical June direct, we did get a full-on Xenoblade Chronicles 3 focus direct, and we got a mini partner showcase, which by all accounts was a fantastic presentation, just only focused on third-party titles and not first-party Nintendo titles that are typically featured at the general directs. And now Nintendo directs are back in the news because of today's announcement, where you can see the following posted up over on Twitter from Nintendo of America official account, where it says, "Tune in on August 10th at 6 a.m. Pacific time for a live streamed Splatoon 3 direct presentation. Join us at the Splatlands for roughly 30 minutes of updates." So first off, that is huge news for Splatoon fans out there, because clearly a 30-minute presentation focused on one major Nintendo title should have you hyped if you are a fan of the series. I am hoping to become a much deeper fan of the series this time around, as I personally have not given the series near enough of a fair shake, and so I will be picking up Splatoon 3 day one. I'm ready to see more details covered and focused on at this event, hopefully an outline of what a single player mode will fully look like, as well as how the online is going to work, maybe some discussion around all the different gameplay modes that are available, some of which we probably don't know about yet. And this should put to bed any of those questions that you've probably seen talked about online, where fans are wondering what the heck's going on with Splatoon. Is something wrong with it? Nintendo hasn't talked about it. Well, this is for you if you were wondering what this game is going to have to offer, and set it apart from Splatoon 2, which some people have also claimed this looks a little bit too similar to, but it's a Splatoon game. I think it's going to have a very unique and specific style, and when I see the gameplay footage, it looks smoother and crisper than ever, so I am very pumped to get into the series more this iteration, this time around on the Nintendo Switch. So set your reminders for this Wednesday for that 30-minute plus event, but we do have to kind of pivot the conversation and talk about what, if at all, does this signal for how Nintendo is viewing the rest of their year with direct presentations, because of course, as I mentioned, we are already in the month of August, meaning we should not have to wait too much longer to find out if that big return to the general direct presentation will be in store for us in September. I am hoping that is the case, and we get a big blowout game that will launch in holiday season, such as Metroid Prime Remaster, which is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year, and industry insider Jeff Grubb even has his hair or beard, I can't remember which one it is, on the line around this, saying that he knows definitively that it will be a holiday 2022 title for Nintendo. And I think you definitely do that, along with some kind of acknowledgement and hopefully even a gameplay trailer for something like Metroid Prime 4. And then a very interesting talking point will be, how does Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 fit into any of this? Because of course, originally that was planned to be a end of 2022 title, and we figured that at E3 timeline, it would make all the sense in the world to do your blowout event there, market it, and lead up to a huge launch in something something like October or November, most likely, capitalize on the holiday sales. We'll probably get the title reveal, all the new gameplay mechanics, a large overview of the world. Are we going underground in addition to the skies? Are traditional dungeons coming back? All the questions us Zelda fans are wondering about that title should have been answered at something like a summertime direct, and clearly Nintendo made the decision to shift that game's launch to spring of 2023, and now it's in a really unique time window on when do they actually pull back the curtain and reveal those details for this. Would it be at something like a mainline general direct in September, or do we see Nintendo do something brand new for the Zelda series where they do its own game focused direct like we are seeing them rely on here with games like Splatoon and Xenoblade? This is not a new strategy for Nintendo, as you can actually look at their Nintendo Direct archive and see that historically games like Xenoblade and Splatoon have always had directs tied to them, Animal Crossing being another series that gets game specific directs, Super Smash Bros also being in that conversation, a one-off Mario 35th focused celebration direct, and even Pokemon, while being developed by Game Freak before the Pokemon Presents formula, has been featured in Pokemon specific directs. However, one series that we are talking about currently that is not on that list, that has never gotten a game specific direct, is the Legend of Zelda series, and it'll be very interesting to see how Nintendo chooses to market this one, because do we get something like the September traditional direct? Breath of the Wild 2 is not mentioned there at all, and then in a December or even January time window where we would start to be talking about the next mainline direct being in most likely February, or maybe the tail end of January, as they've done that before too. Is that where we see the Breath of the Wild 2 blowout event, or do we get a game specific Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 20-minute plus deep dive into all of the questions that we want to see answered? I don't know what Nintendo will do. Clearly none of us do at the end of the day, as we talk about it all the time. They are truly the hardest company to try to look at history and detect any kind of pattern, because just when you think you have them figured out on some kind of a rotating schedule, they decide to do last minute changes and flip-flops, and here we are discussing whether or not even something like a September direct, which is a staple, is even going to happen, which I'm in the camp that I do believe a September direct is coming as a mainline direct. But what I'm curious about is what games are focused on at that direct, and is Breath of the Wild 2 even in the conversation, because it very well may not be, and then I think a game specific direct around Zelda maybe makes sense for the first time. But regardless of what we see Nintendo do in the future, we do now have a clear picture of what the summer 2022 looks like in terms of direct fan communication, and that is 3 individual separately marketed Nintendo Direct presentations, or 4 if you want to throw the Pokemon Presents in there, but Game Freak really does their own thing at this point. In addition to that more drip feed style of communication where we get surprise trailers for brand new games from Kirby, like the Dessert Course, and a Bayonetta 3 gameplay / launch date reveal, like it has definitely been a different year, and one that may be frustrating for many fans out there if you were expecting Nintendo to stick to their regular cadence when it comes to their announcements. But I'm personally a fan of game specific directs, and you know what, as a hardcore Legend of Zelda fan, I would be all for a Zelda focused direct where I know when that event goes live that I have nothing to look forward to other than all Zelda focused announcements and reveals. Like, I'm all for these game specific directs, and I definitely think that they are a unique way to give one game the spotlight and not have anything drown out in a sea of announcements from the mainline general directs. That said, I'm also very much a fan of the general directs, and I certainly hope that we are back to the cadence in September with a mainline presentation with hopefully 1 or 2 new titles that we don't know to be coming out this year actually announced for this year. I think that would put 2022 over the top for me personally, with all of the games that we already know to be on the horizon, like Bayonetta, like Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope, like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and almost already time for Splatoon 3, which, by the way, that OLED model will be up for sale later this month, so if you're trying to get that, make sure you have retail accounts that you follow, such as Wario64 over on Twitter, where he tweets out just about any time a restock happens. You have to have your notifications turned on, and it is a lot of notifications, but whenever that kind of stuff drops and goes live, it almost always sells out immediately. Who knows how far Nintendo will produce that Splatoon specific console into the future, but if you are a collector, you're going to want to be well aware of when that stuff is going live for the first time, and hopefully Nintendo provides plenty of stock so everybody who wants one can get one. But I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, all your personal thoughts and feelings around Nintendo and their 2022 Direct presentation schedule so far. Were you a fan of the more spread out announcements that we've seen over the summer with individual game focused directs and then that third party focused direct? Direct, as well as just surprise Twitter drop and announcements, or you like me and you really did miss E3 this year and felt like that provided a lot more structure on what to expect and when to expect announcements. And there's definitely arguments on both sides because, as I mentioned, games don't get overshadowed when they have individual focus directs, and people who are a fan of that game can tune in to see all the details they want to know and not have to worry about it being totally drowned out by something like a Breath of the Wild 2 launch date and title reveal closer at the end. And also let me know how you think Nintendo handles the rest of the year from here. Do you think we go back to that mainline general presentation in September? Do you think Nintendo throws a curveball and doesn't hold one at all, and we are maybe only talking about something like another game specific direct or something like Zelda Breath of the Wild 2? Do you think they do that for the first time with the Zelda series, or will Zelda always kind of be that show closer type of focal point at mainline directs? And bonus question, when do we get the title reveal in your personal opinion for Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 and the full marketing push for that, since we know it is out in spring of 2023? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings and everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch the weekend video next if you haven't already, where we boot up multiverses together and I share my early gameplay impressions, as well as have a broad discussion around whether or not this Smash clone style fighting game is actually a true challenger to the Smash Bros formula. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.